2006 and 7, there was a big debate about the International Criminal Court and the fact that the ICC, that U.S. heads of state and army, military people did not want to be subject to prosecution.
Right.
And they went around the world trying to get countries to agree that they should be exempted. And we in the Caribbean said, hey, we hear you, but one, it don't make sense because this is intended for all people.
Yep.
But two, even if it wasn't, this is the idea of the former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, A.N.R. Robinson. And as a matter of solidarity, as well as principle, we can't do it. They said, well, if you don't do it, we're going to withdraw all military aid from your countries.
Wow.
I said, okay, that's not a wise thing to do, but
I mean, that's
we
also
talked
not a...
for a year,
Yeah.
18 months, and eventually they said, we're going to do it anyhow. What happens? Nature abhors a vacuum. China, who never had any relationship with any of the militaries in the region really, then stepped in and developed a relationship and provided training and equipment and things thereafter. Does that make sense to a country that is so frightened for China?
See, when you're saying that, I wish more people understood, especially Western nations, you know, quote unquote. I wish they understood how many of the problems they're experiencing are created in a cycle.
Yep.
You know, so friends and I were talking the other day, you can't talk about 9/11 without talking about Osama bin Laden. You can't talk about it without talking about Al-Qaeda. But then you can't talk about it without talking about the CIA, which you then can't talk about without talking about the US and what it was trying to do about communism.
Yep.
And now many of those people will go, oh, we did the wrong thing. But the effects are felt so many years later. And what you're saying is the same. If you watch the news in America, if you watch the news in the UK, let's say the BBC, they'll very quickly say, China's expanding. We've seen China here, and China's in Africa, and China's in the Caribbean, China's doing this, China's... But I don't think I've seen any news reports that say, well, the US opened the door for China and the US reneged.
The North Atlantic countries have not necessarily treated to the issue of development in the post-colonial era as well as they could have. We talk about official development assistance being 0.7% of GDP. Most countries don't even observe that. But for countries...
As in that's a portion that they're supposed to contribute
to globally.
To developing nation. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But countries like my own have been said, oh, you're middle income, you don't need money from us. So we effectively don't get any aid from the USA or from Britain or whatever other than a part of a regional study or a regional thing that is done. And that's one of the things that we've been arguing, and I'll come to that in a bit because that's at the core of a lot of the development issues, that we are asked to be able to access capital from the official financial institutions, international financial institutions, on the basis of historic GDP per capita, which really doesn't... I tell people that is like taking my blood pressure 2 years ago to determine if I'm going to have a stroke today. It's completely irrelevant. You understand?
That's a great analogy.
So that what matters, because in 72 hours, a hurricane can hit me.
Yeah.
And I can have wipeout risk. Now, a hurricane can hit in Florida. You don't have wipeout risk. A hurricane hits in the Bahamas or Dominica, it's gone.
Yeah.
And instead of dealing with qualitative issues in education, you're now dealing with basic access to schools again. So we make the point that the North Atlantic countries, for whatever reason, had the Caribbean and a lot of the other small island developing states in the Pacific, etc., in a certain prism. This is how they view you. This is how they're going to relate to you.